Hi everyone, hope you're all keeping well. Thanks for joining our webinar today on Discover FlowForma's app for Microsoft Teams, supercharging video calls and instant messaging activities to accommodate task and process management, informed decision making and collaborative process execution with the FlowForma app for Microsoft Teams. My name is Conor McGrath. I'm a digital marketing assistant here at FlowForma and I'll be your host for today's session. So before we get started, I have a few housekeeping tips for today's webinar. If you've any issues during the webinar, please email info@flowforma.com for any assistance. I should remind you all that throughout this webinar, your lines will be muted, but please use the Q&A function to ask any questions you may have, and we'll hope to get them at the end of our chat today. Also note that today's webinar is being recorded. So today I'm delighted to be joined by my FlowForma colleagues, Paul Stone, who's our product strategist here, and David Shanley, who's process consultant. Welcome guys, thanks for joining me today.
Thanks, Conor.
Thanks, Conor.
So with that, I'm going to hand you straight over to Paul, who's going to talk to you a bit about FlowForma to begin with. The floor is yours, Paul.
Thanks, Conor. Before we jump into our Teams discussion, I'd like to set a little background on what FlowForma actually is. FlowForma is a system that allows you to digitize business processes that involve many people working together to achieve business goals. You can take processes that currently work on paper, emails, and spreadsheets and transform them into digital processes that drive resources to achieve business goals in a predictable, structured manner with full audit compliance. I'm going to tell you what FlowForma brings to the table and how it adds value when using Microsoft Teams. So FlowForma fundamentally is a system that combines several things together in one package. It combines workflow, that's the execution of tasks in a predictable manner to achieve a business goal. It also adds data processing in respect of forms. So data can be captured all the way through the workflow and analyzed later. And then it automatically adds document generation and document management. So those three things are combined together in one single tool. And that tool is designed for use by business developers. So business people can actually configure processes, deliver them into the business. And it also has an award-winning interface that makes the processes easy to adopt in the workplace. And we're going to show you a little bit of that in our demonstration later on. Fundamentally, FlowForma runs on top of Office 365. It's native to Office 365. It saves all that data, all those documents, etc., in SharePoint, using SharePoint as a backend. And now it also interfaces with Microsoft Teams. That's our main discussion point of the day, and we'll be showing a demonstration on that shortly. Some of the big advantages of the approach that we take with FlowForma is that it's very fast. So you can digitize processes at record speed. Also, it's very intuitive so that end users can adopt those processes quickly, and it can be used by the business throughout the business. It's very affordable in that you can start small and grow big as you achieve with FlowForma. And then it has that no-code interface. So it's all about business developers constructing those processes and pushing them out through the organization. It's also very agile. You can quickly change FlowForma. So if you build something, push it out, and you get negative feedback, no problem at all. You can go in and change it very quickly. And that's why users love our tool. And we're constantly evolving our product and responding to market needs and making it better. And that's one of the reasons that we've entered the Teams marketplace. We're an award-winning process automation tool. We're a Microsoft Gold partner and have won awards from Microsoft in relation to our usability. We've also been recognized by Forrester, who've included us in their new developer wave for business developers as a strong performer. And really, we're revolutionizing the BPM space, which traditionally was full of products that were complex to define, to configure, and to use. We now have presence in over 20 countries, all around the globe, from New Zealand to the west coast of the States, and we have over 2,000 people using FlowForma. Sorry, 200,000, excuse me, people using FlowForma throughout the world. In terms of the companies that deal with us, well, it's really the solution is not aimed at any specific marketplace or any specific type of company or business problem. Everybody has processes. Everybody has paper-based processes that they need to automate. And FlowForma solves that problem for many companies. To give an example, we have Aon Insurance, who use it for contractor insurance. Marsh use it for risk analysis. Inland Rail, one of the largest construction projects in Australia, use it for sustainability. Every client we have has a use for FlowForma, regardless of the sector that they're in. So you might wonder why we launched the FlowForma app for Microsoft Teams. We are a tool that's all about collaboration. It's all about business process. And there's quite an overlap, one might think, with Microsoft Teams. But the truth is, as people work in teams, their work is often unstructured. And FlowForma adds structure to that work to make that work more productive and enable people to achieve those business goals. So when they're collaborating in Microsoft Teams, whether that's through a chat or whether it's through editing documents in a channel, etc., you can associate that activity with a workflow and record that as progress against the business goal. So it's making that collaboration more productive and measuring the effect of that collaboration. It's also keeping you aware of your changing workload, because the FlowForma Teams app has a dashboard. You'll be seeing it soon. And that dashboard is telling you what you have to do right now, what tasks are currently on your to-do list. And you can also initiate workflows as well to involve other people in the organization in achieving those all-important business goals. And that's really important because you want to deliver towards your business objectives and make sure that the work you're doing is coordinated across the business to actually achieve those business goals. And as you achieve them, it's important to measure them as well. Are you achieving them on time? Are things running late? Have you hit a gap, a blocker in your process? And have the ability to be able to see that. So measuring your success is very important. And FlowForma enables you to do that and relate it directly to the activity you're doing in Teams. At the end of the day, especially in these difficult times with the COVID outbreak, it's important to increase remote working productivity. Everybody's sitting at their kitchen tables, working away, and it's important to align that work with those business goals and ensure that the workers are being as productive as they would have been when they were sitting at their desk. Okay, so what I'd like to do now is switch over to a demonstration, and my colleague David Shanley is going to carry that out. Over to you, David.
Thank you, Paul. So what you're looking at here is the dashboard of the FlowForma app that sits on SharePoint within your Office 365 tenancy. And it's here that I built out the process we're going to showcase in the FlowForma Teams app dashboard. So you can see here in this set of tiles here, which process would you like to start? Pre-built processes that you can initiate as an end user. And the one we're going to be working with is the tender response process, which I built. If I scroll down, you'll see as well, we also have filtered views to show you forms awaiting my input, for example, or a more specific view, say, for example, the number of forms awaiting CCO approval. So this is where the process was built, the tender response process. And I'm going to move in now into the Teams interface, and we're going to show you how it gets kicked off using the FlowForma app. So the FlowForma app, you can see the icon for it here, and you can see the dashboard, which obviously bears a strong resemblance to the dashboard in the app on SharePoint. You'll see the processes you can initiate here. And you can also see work that is awaiting your attention. So for example, here I can see there's 12 forms awaiting my input. So let's start by initiating the tender response process from within Teams by clicking on the tender response tile. So that's going to open up on the initial step of the process. What I'd like to do just briefly is describe the look and feel of the form. So you have a header portion here, which you can customize. So you can see here we've pulled in our logo together with the name of the process. In the step bar sitting directly underneath, you can see the currently engaged in step in white, and you can see the subsequent steps, CCO approval, technical review, and so on. So irregardless of what step you are in the process, you get a very, very strong contextual overview as to where you sit within the overall process. And you'll see all the fields here I'm going to fill in. I have an option to save my progress, return to it at a later point, or submit and push it forward. So let's key in some information here. So the company is going to be Acme. The tender response name is for air conditioning. Organization contact is the John Smith. I'll put in his email address. And his contact number. And the tender reference. Now, once I click on this button here, create a Teams channel, that is going to automatically create that channel for me in Teams. And we also have a question that was hidden, and that's now been displayed using a business rule, and it's asking me to upload the tender response document that the channel is going to be working on. So if I upload here, I'm going to pull this in from my desktop. And this is it here. So before we go any further here, I'm going to save my progress. And I want to take you into the Teams interface and show you what has just happened. So if I go into my Teams and click on the icon here, and take a look, you'll see there's one hidden channel. If I make that visible, that channel is now visible and engageable. And if I go through to my Files tab, you'll now see that we have a document to work on here as a team. And obviously we can collaborate from within Teams on this, chat to each other, and make our way through it slowly but surely. So moving back to my FlowForma dashboard here in Teams, I'm going to click on Forms away to my input here. And the form we're working on is TR47. And I'm going to open that back up again. And I'm going to work on it. So again, if you recall, I've saved my progress on the initial step. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to determine what the deadline for this tender is. I'm going to give ourselves a little bit of time. It's the 31st of August. And it's at 4 a.m. in the morning. So I'm going to submit this now, and it's going to move through to Paul for approval. Paul owns the CCO approval step. So when I click submit, I'm going to get kicked out of this, and I'm going to hand it over to Paul so you can see him approve the second step within the process. So I'm going to click submit. Okay, just make sure there's no saved conflict here. And I'm going to hand that over to you now, Paul.
Thanks for that, David. So I'm now going to kick into my CCO approvals. And what we'll do is we'll pick up the form that we were just looking at. Excuse me, I'm just going to close that view there. And we'll just refresh that because David has just submitted that form. And here we go, TR47. And when we open that up, it allows me to view the form and decide if I'm going to approve it or not. So as you can see, the information from the first step has carried on forward. I can review this detail and I can decide, yes, I'm going to move that forward, please. So I'll press yes, press submit, and that will now move it forward. So if I go back now into my Teams app, what we'll see is that if I close that view, you'll see that the awaiting CCO approval has gone back to 1 again because that TR47 has now moved on to a new stage. And I'll pass back to David now to show you what will happen next.
Thank you, Paul. So again, I'm back in my Teams interface here. I'm going to go into the FlowForma Teams app, and I'm going to click on Forms away to my input, and I can see it here, TR47. I'm going to click on that, and it's going to open up on my step, which is the technical review step. So I'm going to complete my review. I'm happy to proceed. I don't have any comments, and I'm going to click submit. Now I own the next step as well, so we're going to move straight into that. And I'm going to assign then the tender to the appropriate individuals. So the two people that are going to be working on this are myself and Paul. And what this allows you to do in this table here is it allows you to break down the document by pages. So I'm going to decide on page 1 through to 4, and that's going to be owned by me. I don't have any comments. I'm going to add a new row here. And page 5 through to 6 is going to be owned by Paul. And you can see task 2 has been assigned to Paul. And you'll notice up here at the top, you'll see just 2 steps have appeared up here. And you can see tasks 1 and tasks 2. And these step boxes are slightly smaller than the other ones because these 2 steps can be engaged with in parallel or concurrently. So I'm going to add one more row here. That's going to be from 7 through to 8. And I'm going to assign that to me as well. I'm just going to put a comment in here. So the tender has to be done in English. You'll notice that the system, we've designed this process so that it picks up that there's only 2 assignees here, both myself and Paul. So when I go to my step, it's going to have a filtered table here, and it's only going to pull in content that's been assigned to me, and the same for Paul. So when I click submit, it's going to move through into that parallel set of steps. And I'm on my step here, tasks 1, you see it highlighted in white. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just save my progress here, because what's going to happen is we have a month to do this. We're going to be using the Teams to interface with the document. So if I go back in here, and I go into my Teams and through to my channel that we created specifically for this, I'm going to be dipping in and out of this document over the next few days. So I'm going to click on it here. I'm going to open that up in my desktop app. I'm going to start working on it. And Paul is going to do the same. So if I scroll down through to page 7 and 8, there was an instruction around the tender being submitted in English. So I need to change this portion here to reflect that. And you can dip in and out of this. I can communicate via Teams with Paul, message him, share our expertise, and basically make our way through this. And you can see here, Paul is after keying in some information here. So we can both work on this document at the same time. And what I'm going to do next is I'm going to just collapse this here. Let's just say we've been working on it now for the last month, and we finally got it completed. So I'm going to go back into my FlowForma app here in Teams, and I'm going to go through to my forms awaiting my input. I'm going to open up my form here. And I don't have any actions here. Everything I needed to do has been done. So I'm just going to submit my step here. And then I'm just going to hand it across to Paul. I'm going to submit his step.
Yep, and that step is just being submitted.
Okay, so once the step's been submitted, it moves through then to the last step in the process here, which is, okay, let me submit mine. Sorry, I'd have to finish mine. Which is our CEO approval. So the CEO can click on all the previous steps here, take a look at the content that's been submitted in the document, and decide whether or not they approve. So if they don't approve, I could request an amendment. I can decide who owns that task. In this case, it's me. And I can put in the comments. And once I click submit, that's going to pass all the way back to my step here. And I can see the comments embedded here, and I can go in and again edit my document and make the appropriate changes. So the documents can be edited either via the form in the desktop browser, or you can go in and interface via the FlowForma Teams app in Microsoft Teams. But what it does allow you to do is it allows you to work on a document collaboratively over a long period of time, and you can exchange your expertise and knowledge and get through it a lot quicker and more efficiently.
So that was a view of our Teams app and a very simple use case of a tender response. Now with that tender response, we showed you the FlowForma workflow and the system interacting with Teams in a pretty simple way. It was creating a channel, it was uploading a document into that channel, and as people worked on that document, you could reassociate it with workflow and record the progress on it. It was a specific use case, but just to let you know that we also have other interactions with Teams as well. So for example, if you were working on Teams, creating a channel, you could upload a document to that channel, work away on a document or a set of documents, and then subsequently kick off a workflow and associate that channel, those documents, with the workflow as well. So you could do it the other way around, basically, than the way we showed you. Also, you can also post messages and so on into Teams channel to ensure that work is being progressed appropriately and properly, and you're keeping that log inside Teams, that conversation history inside Teams, along with the workflow, so that you get basically the best of both worlds. So you've got the full Teams functionality of the conversation, of the documents, of the document sharing, plus all the workflow that you're getting with the FlowForma application as well. And you got that dashboard that lets you see everything. So really the dashboard, I guess, is the key piece here, because it always allows you to know your workload. You can see what steps are currently assigned to you, what processes are assigned to you, and you can quickly access those processes via the dashboard. You can also keep moving towards your business goals. So all that work you're doing, if you're associated with a workflow, means you're getting towards that business goal, and you can see how far you've progressed. You can also coordinate the work between multiple members in the team very easily and in a very structured and automated way, so that as a task is completed, it can be passed on to somebody else. They can get a notification in Teams, and they can go and carry out the work that they need to do. And you can track that progress. So all the information that you're capturing on that workflow is being tracked in the background. All that information is in fact stored in SharePoint. And you can report on that and keep track of the progress, ensuring that you're always moving towards your business goal and identifying any bottlenecks that you might encounter along the way. Because you're linking the data to the workflow and you're linking the documents to the workflow, you're getting all that key information in the right place at the right time to make better decisions. So you have all that data that we showed you capturing in FlowForma, but you also have the related documents, the documentation backup that's allowing you to make the right decisions. And those decisions, of course, are recorded in the workflow, and different tasks are displayed depending on which decisions you make. All of it's captured in the audit trail, and the audit trail is available to be reported on. At the end of the day, FlowForma helps you maintain productivity while working remotely. Because when you're working in an office, you can quickly call over to another person to coordinate with them, and you can interact with them at the coffee spot and so on, and you lose all of that when you're remote working. So FlowForma helps you keep a bit of structure in your activity so that you're moving towards those business goals and achieving your results for your company. Okay, at that point, I think we're ready to move on to some Q&A. So Connor, if you have any questions, you can fire them towards myself or David, that'd be great.
Thanks, guys. I'm sure our audience will gain some real insights there. So before we jump into some questions, you might be interested in downloading our new white paper, why digitization is no longer an option, and you can get that from our website at www.flowforma.com/digitize. But we've got plenty of time for some questions. So there's a question here. I think, David, you might be able to help us out on this one. It's just asked, can you access any site in your tenancy?
In short, yes. So the app will prompt you with a list of sites that you can access in your tenancy. And you can pick that site up that you need and will display in the dashboard for that site. So you can return to the site list at any time to pick up a different site, and the Teams app dashboard switches to the new site that you've picked.
Okay, thanks, Dave. So we have another question here, and it's asking, can I create a file in Teams and associate it with the workflow? Paul, you might be able to help us out on that one, maybe.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So like I was saying earlier, you can basically, the workflow that we showed you involved uploading a file from your browser, from your hard drive or your laptop, and uploading it into that Teams files area. Now, that's not the only workflow. You can create any workflow you like, and you can use it in different ways too. So you can collaborate in Teams and build a lot of content in Teams, and then later associated with the workflow. So you don't have to go workflow first. You can go content first and then workflow later. Absolutely. So you can just, we have the tool that you use to pick out a file from your PC. You can also use the same tool to pick out a file from Teams, reaching into different teams and so on to access files you've been working on together. So yeah, absolutely. You can look works in both directions.
Thanks, Paul. So there's another question here asking, can FlowForma generate files and place them in Teams? David, would you maybe be able to shed some light on that first by any chance?
Yeah, sure. So we didn't cover that in the webinar, but FlowForma has a document generation capabilities that allows you to create documents based on Word templates. So you can take data from FlowForma forms and merge those with the templates and produce either a Word file that's editable or indeed a PDF should you wish. So we could in this instance have used this for our tender example. So we could have captured more details around, say, the company issuing the tender and a summary of the proposal, and then have a FlowForma automatically build, say, an executive summary document that could then be placed in the Teams file tab.
Okay, thanks, Dave. There's also one that's after coming in here. So is it possible to get reports or dashboards to subsequently review the number of tasks completed, review cycles, and include a flow branch for invoicing? Paul, would you be able to shed some light on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So in terms of reporting, like you remember that dashboard that you saw with the number of processes at CCO, and it gave it a little number? Well, that's actually configurable. The whole dashboard is configurable, so you can see processes at different states and so on. So at any particular status, you can say that I want to see that processes that are waiting approval, that are specifically assigned to me. So you can build out these tiles really easily and add those tiles to your Teams desktop there. So, sorry, to the Teams app. So you can see that information very quickly and easily, but you can also build out reports based on all the data that you're capturing in those workflows. So any information that you want to capture or report on can be done. And you can surface that through a variety of tools. So yeah, it's got very comprehensive ability to capture data, and that data feeds then into reports. And the dashboard, as I said, was configurable, so you can actually build out as many of those tiles as you need.
Thanks, Paul. There's another question here asking, is there a test version of the Teams app available? I presume that means maybe a trial.
Well, that's a good point, actually, because the Teams app itself is a viewer. You're viewing into a FlowForma application that's sitting inside SharePoint. So you can definitely have a trial. And the thing you need to do is get a trial of the FlowForma application and then install your Teams app, and it will link up with that FlowForma app. Okay, so the FlowForma application is available. It's installed inside your SharePoint environment, and you can install it from the SharePoint App Store or App Source. And then you install Teams from the Teams App Store, and the two of them will just link together. I think if you want to request any assistance on getting that trial up to date installed, you should contact FlowForma. So if you go to flowforma.com, you'll see a connection where you can click on that and request a trial, and they'll talk you through the whole installation procedures, which is very straightforward.
Great. Thanks, Paul, for that. I think we might leave it there for today, folks. Unless there's any more questions that are coming in here towards the end, we might wrap up a little bit early and let everyone get back to their busy schedules. I know things are quite hectic at the moment, so we might wrap up a little bit earlier. Okay, so I think that's pretty much us then for today. I'd like to thank you for joining us, first and foremost, and I'd also like to say a big thank you to my colleagues, Paul and David, for your time. Thanks very much, guys.
That's great. Thanks, Connor.
You're welcome.
So before we wrap up, I should quickly mention that we've launched our FlowForma for Teams webpage on our website, and you'll find more info there on how you can enjoy full visibility of tasks, decision-making capability, and collaboration. And just as Paul said earlier as well, you can visit our website to learn more about that and to sign up for a free one-to-one demo, or in fact a free 14-day trial as well. So finally, when this webinar ends, you'll be invited just to fill in a quick survey, and we would really appreciate if you could take just about 1 minute to fill that in for us. It really helps us to understand what you want to see in these future webinars. So if you could fill out that form for us, it'd be great. Thanks very much. And I think that's all for today, folks. All I have to say is have a great day, everyone. Bye now.